So, Monster Hunter Wilds Ascendance has been announced. I was tempted to open with like 2 minutes of Unhinged fangirling, but I decided I could spare you all that. One, because you could all be hungover, and two, because I definitely am hungover. June is a big month after all. So yeah, the Monster Hunter Wilds expansion trailer dropped on Summer Games Fest like everyone was predicting, and oh my god, it looks amazing. Of my zone predictions, I'm really glad they went with the third, more unique type of environment I predicted. Although, given the Ice Shard Cliff's anti-grav tech, I don't know why Sky Islands never occurred to me as a possibility, especially given what I'm going to be talking about later with the logos. I'm so happy to be wrong though. And thanks to the developer diary, we actually know the zone's name, the Skybound Eyrie. Love it. So let's talk about it. So, first of all, I want to say that this is by far the most elaborate reveal trailer a recent expansion has had, and a lot more than what I was expecting. Iceborne was essentially just a distant sea view of the Hoarfrost and a title drop, and Sunbreak was the Malzeno hype trailer. But we not only got a solid look at the new zone, we didn't even get the flagship reveal. Heck, Rathalos wasn't even present outside of his Guardian variant. There are a few things I want to touch on from the reveal trailer, both in terms of expectations and in terms of speculation. Narrative trajectory is one, monster predictions and soft confirmations are another. I also want to touch on the general vibe of the expansion from what we can tell, and I want to talk about the logo. These are all kind of intertwined for me, but I'll try and be at least semi-coherent and outline them all in a consistent fashion. Starting with the big noticeable changes. Firstly, there's been a definitive time skip. This isn't surprising. There is canonically 3 years between the events of Monster Hunter World and Iceborne, for example, but this is probably the most visually distinctive a time skip has been in the recent games. It's worth noting here there are also clearly telegraphed time skips in the base game, between low rank and high rank for example, but also between high rank and the Gogmazios raid. This is clearly a fairly big jump, however. Nata has aged up, likely from around the 14-ish I read him as in the base game to something more like 18. This excites me because it means Nata can continue his arc in a more active capacity, having grown into his own as a young hunter. I expect him to join the support hunter roster, likely using either a bow to support us from range, or an insect glaive to emphasize his theme of learning harmony and equilibrium with nature and the monsters that live in it. Other than Nata though, everyone else has received some fairly substantial design changes to stress the passage of time. New hair and new clothes primarily. Gemma's hair is perhaps the most immediately noticeable of these. Love the hair girl. She also, however, is sporting a new plushie on her waist of a certain chubby cave wyvern. At first I thought this might be a Gigi, but the tongue makes it clear this is a replica of the plushie Kezu you can buy IRL, although shockingly not from Ann Summers. Regardless, the time skip gives time for the events of base worlds to settle, for new equilibriums to form before they are upended by the inciting events of Ascendance, on which more anon. Secondly, it's been confirmed by the dev interview that Elder Dragons are going to be a major part of the story. We could have inferred this from the trailer, both from the presence of 2 returning elders, Kushala Daora and Lao Shan Lung, respectively, but also from these voice lines.
They can affect the environment with just their presence. A moving natural disaster.
Too powerful to tame, too difficult to reproduce. Sounds like an elder dragon.
Still, it's good to have solid confirmation. This also means that Gogmazios was the gateway rather than the exception. The trailer highlights core aspects of Elder Dragons in both their capacity to impact the environment, essentially as mobile living natural calamities, and in that they are both too powerful to tame and, more interestingly for me, too difficult to reproduce. The first feels like a nod to their uncapturability, although it could also perhaps relate to the capturability of demi-elders in the sense of gore. That's something I'd like to see expanded on. However, the second could be a much deeper cut, nodding at Wyveria's guardian process, and makes me think we might learn a bit more about the attempts that went into the ill-fated Xochitl. On the note of guardians themselves, there are a few notable things related to them in the trailer. Firstly, they're in the Eyrie, which makes sense as a place based on Wyverian technology, but secondly, they are also in the Plains. What seemingly is Kushala Daora's introduction cutscene has it scattering vast numbers of Guardian monsters with its storm in what is very clearly the Windward Plains. They also have this red glow around them, which I'm going to touch on later. But given the location of the Skybound Eyrie, that is, in the skies above Wyveria itself, I'm going to throw out a prediction that the inciting incident for Ascendance is going to be Guardians literally falling from the sky. This acts as both a sign of something abnormal, even if we don't initially see them fall, them or their corpses appearing outside Wyveria marks a change in the environment, and ultimately gives us our impetus to, well, ascend. And I want to also touch on the general vibe here. The Skybound Eyrie fits right into one of the core motifs of Wilds as a journey of discovery. This isn't just a new frontier, but a frontier of both wonder and danger. The characters react with a sense of awe that mirrors their reactions to parts of the base game. This, the continued presence of Wyverian technology as a core focus, and the dev comments that this is a continuation of Wilds' story, tells us that this is actually a direct follow-up to base Wilds, and not a kind of side story like the majority of Iceborne was, or a broadly unrelated follow-up a la base Sunbreak. So that's general vibes and some narrative pointers. I'll touch on a few more going forward, but I really want to talk about the monsters here. The trailer shows us one new monster. Well, arguably it shows two. This rather vibrant flying fellow here who is confirmed to be an alpha. Firstly, I was incredibly hyped to see a spin on Wilds' pack dynamics here with this coordinated attack the monsters conduct. Something like this is a kind of thing base Wilds was missing, and it really gives me hope that it's going to be a bigger gameplay focus in Master Rank. Secondly though, there is a visual difference between the monsters here. Only the central alpha one has the vibrant blue hide, whereas the four monsters flanking them are a much drabber colour. My guess is that this is representative of an alpha male and a small harem of females, and that while they are technically going to share the same monster designation a la Doshagama and Alpha Doshagama, we're seeing a visual difference in the pack leader a la Alpha Doshagama's kind of redder coat and broader size. This would also make sense since the vibrant male and duller female coloration is found in many bird species in real life, and this is also very clearly a bird wyvern. Specifically, it is one using the skeleton of a monster heretofore marooned in old-gen games, Kurupeko. To me, this soft confirms that Kurupeko is going to be one of our returners. I do not believe anyone in base Wilds uses this skeleton, although feel free to correct me, and resource efficiency tells me that Kurupeko is therefore in. Wilds already brought back some old-school bird wyverns like Yankutku and Gypsaros, and bringing back Kurupeko in the expansion would expand this noticeably. I'm still holding out hope for young Garuga, and I am still unsure if they're going to do a blue Kutku, especially as the blue-tinged pack leader niche I saw it potentially filling in the Scarlet Forest would kind of step on this new guy's toes. On the subject of Kurupeko, however, it's also soft confirmation. Its soft confirmation also makes another monster's inclusion more likely. The bird wyvern's signature gimmick in the old-gen games is that it mimics other monster cries and lures them in to fight you while it makes an escape. The most infamous of these is Devil Joe. If Kurupeko is soft confirmed to return, as I think it is, I also think Devil Joe is as well. The interaction is kind of too iconic to miss here, And besides, Deviljho has only actually missed like one game since it was introduced, which was Rise and Sunbreak. So it being back in Wilds' G-Rank expansion makes a lot of sense. This new Bird Wyvern and the flagship map of the expansion being the Skybound Eyrie also makes me think we might be setting up for a Bird Wyvern renaissance. An eyrie is specifically the nest of a bird of prey, usually an eagle, but also a hawk or a falcon. I think given this, the apex of this new map, and possibly even the flagship of the expansion, is going to be either a bird wyvern, or more likely, in my opinion, a bird like elder dragon or demi-elder. For those who pay attention to Wilds' lore, I would not be surprised if this turns out to be, or at least be related to, Samult, the legendary bird from Kunafa Legend who in the base game is used as an analogue for the player's role as a protective force. I've also read some theories from fans on the subreddit, and apologies for not being able to credit them directly because I tried to find them and I couldn't, that Samult may have been the original model for Zoshia before it was corrupted by Fatalis, Cells, Essence, Gunk, whatever. This actually also ties into something else I want to touch on related to the game's logo and its difference from the base Wilds logo, but also from the version of the logo that we see in-universe. So, the logo for Ascendance is a modified version of the base Wilds logo, and both of these are also modified versions of an insignia that appears in 2 places to my knowledge within the game itself. One on the path down to Sild, and another at the entrance to the Dragon Torch Shrine where you fight Zoshia. For context, here's all 3 logos side by side. The central diegetic rendition of the logo is clearly representative of the Dragon Torch and its connection to the core biomes of the base campaign through the land spine. The land spine is represented here as a single dragon. You can tell it because it only has 4 legs in 2 pairs, here and here. Its tail curls around the Dragon Torch and Wyveria, runs up towards this emblem of infinity, likely symbolizing the torch as a source of unlimited energy, and then loops back down to the bottom where the dragon head is. Although it is not eating its own tail, there is a kind of Ouroboros quality to the dragon here, in which the energy flows out of and then back to Wyveria. On the way, it empowers the 4 core biomes, represented by these symbols. You can tell that these are the core biomes because these symbols appear literally around the regional apexes during inclemencies. They are the basin, the plains, the cliffs, and the forest, respectively. Noticeably, this differs from the core logo of base Wilds. Here, the biomes are absent, but are represented more abstractly by these 4 circles, flowing out of the central column. The logo is also placed on the right of the title at the end of this line, representing the journey of our party from west to east. The most critical difference, however, is that the dragon is now 2 dragons with 2 distinct sets of legs. If the complete dragon represents the land spine, this second dragon likely represents Zoshia as a parasitic force on the Dragon Torch, severing its complete flow. This is reinforced by the game itself, in which after slaying Zoshia for the first time, the ecology of the biomes begins to stabilize and flourish, leading to the increase in biodiversity with new monsters that we find in high rank. Ascendance's logo is a modification and hybridization of both of these pre-existing logos. The logo is now centered, and these waves behind the text logo demonstrate an upwards flow. That is, we are no longer journeying from west to east or from left to right, but from below to above. The empty spheres from the base logo have also now been filled in with their appropriate biomes. They are no longer mysterious blank spaces, but known quantities. The space around the Dragon Torch is also no longer broken, but mirrors the in-universe logo, and the torch is also now a flame. However, the dual dragon motif remains. How we read this depends entirely on which dragon in the logo we see as representing Zoshia. The emblem of infinite energy present in the in-game version of the logo is here for Ascendance, But rather than sitting at the midsection of the singular landspine Ouroboros, it is being actively consumed by the ascending dragon. If this is the dragon we see as representing the parasitic Xoxia, pushing upward towards the pale blue skies in which the Eyrie resides, then we have a situation in which at least some part of Xoxia is rising out of the ruins of Ryveria to consume some, perhaps alternative energy source located in the heavens. Alternatively, if it is the descending dragon that represents Xoxia, preventing the complete circuit of the landspine, then while the energy of the dragon torch flows towards the heavens, Wyveria itself is becoming saturated with Xoxia's power, symbolically severing it from the remainder of the map. It's entirely possible that this is going to lead into a destruction or some kind of transformation in how the Dragon Torch functions within the Eastlands that may ultimately lead us to Xoxia's, final destruction. Regardless, though, there's a lot of things to speculate about here. One thing to note is that the biome spheres are generally coloured blue, the same as the Rising Dragon. By contrast, this lower dragon curled around the Dragon Torch is coloured red, clearly marking it as separate from the rest of the logo. The colour scheme of sky blue and dark red is also reflected in the logo itself. This dark red is also clearly reminiscent of the red lightning that accompanies dragon energy, likely tying into the renewed focus on elder dragons. The torch is burning bright, but is also symbolically cut off from the rest of the map in crucial ways. Worth noting here is that in the brief glimpse of Kushala tossing around the Guardians in the trailer, we can see this reddish glow on their bodies, something that we also see in Xoxia during our fight with it. What this means is unknown, but it likely figures heavily into some relationship to dragon energy, to the logo's coloration, and to the impact of increased Elder Dragon presence on the Dragon Torch, and therefore on Wyveria. It is noticeable that the only biome sphere that is coloured red here is Wyveria itself. While the base game logo figures Xoxia and the Landspine, it's also possible that this logo also seeks to represent a kind of split in Xoxia itself between the darker Fatalis aspects, which are drawing down, and the more angelic aspects ascending towards the heavens. This could represent either a literal or symbolic separation of its essences. That is, Xoxia as an entity could be split, or a new entity could emerge from it, shedding the darker Fatalis-esque aspects and the demon draconic parts of itself as it soars upwards towards the heavens. On a more symbolic level, though, the logo could simply indicate that we are going to be given insight into the more angelic origins of Xoxia before its corruption. This is likely something we will learn about in the Skybound Eyrie, and my guess is that this more angelic half will be some variation of Samalt, or the monster that the legendary bird was based on, either as a kind of apex wyvern or, as I mentioned earlier, more likely a bird-like elder dragon or demi-elder. The trailer line about elder dragons being too potent to tame and too difficult to reproduce may play into this, namely that the composite elder that is Xoxia may have arisen in the process of trying to guardianify specific elders more broadly, with hybridization of elder dragon essence operating as one approach the Wyverians took. Nevertheless, I do feel that the ascending dragon, seeking to consume a symbol of infinity while dragging the surrounding biomes along with it, cannot be emblematic of anything good. Additionally, however, I also feel that the logo is symbolic of the Skybound Eyrie itself. All of the core biomes of the base game are figured in the logo. The lower circle surrounding the Dragon Torch is Wyveria, and the surrounding four are the plains, the forest, the basin, and the cliffs. However, the vertical shape crowned by infinity and radiating light down onto the world could represent the Eyrie itself, and in fact likely does. Hence its excision from the base logo and inclusion in Ascendance. The Rising Dragon is here consuming the Eyrie, but also it is carrying the surrounding biomes towards the Eyrie itself, at least symbolically, and in the process removing them from the Dragon Torch. This leads me on to something else I want to comment on. The website and press releases for the expansion specifies that we will be getting new areas, plural. As I mentioned in my previous videos, both 5th gen expansions have given us a singular biome map and a multi-biome map. I actually suspect the Skybound Eyrie may actually turn out to be our version of Sunbreak's Citadel. That is, a multi-biome map that forms the crux of the main story. During a couple of sections of the trailer, we see this desert region being clearly part of the Eyrie, but also noticeably different from the Windward Plains. But also, how the blue dragon is carrying the 4 biomes into the sky in its ascension makes me think that the Eyrie is actually going to have regions that mirror the core biomes of the base game, with this desert portion being the plains analog. Looking in the background here, one can also see one of the artificial interwoven tree-like structures we see in the Scarlet Forest. It's possible that separate regions of the Eyrie may have been localized testing grounds for the technologies that led to the inclemencies below. This is partly why the light is radiating down from it to the other biomes in the in-universe logo. It's worth remembering that the Citadel and the Hoarfrost Reach, which were the flagship areas of their expansions, were significantly larger than the base game maps. And so, while the majority of the interconnective tissue of the Eyrie mirrors the likes of Heaven's Mount from Monster Hunter 4, for example, sections of it could form more localized mini-biomes that can be populated by small menageries of large monsters, who may have been kept for testing purposes but now run wild. No pun intended. It's entirely possible that Elder Dragons were actually initially attempted to be imprisoned here or experimented on as a means of synthesizing their weather manipulation capabilities in order to create the inclemencies in the first place. And yes, this does mean my predictions are that we are getting another map that is going to be a more singular biome. Something more akin to Sunbreak's jungle. I'm going to say coastal regions still for this. I think the Heaven's Mount style quality of much of the Skybound Eyrie likely covers any need for a temperate mountain zone, even if my predictions are right and it turns out to be a multi-biome map. It's possible the second biome is going to be where we see Laoshan Lung at the end of the trailer, although I am leaning towards this being either a special arena attached to the Windward Plains. It reminds me a lot of the dusty fulgurite cliffs in the southwest of the map, or something similar to the quote-unquote desert portion of the Eyrie. I'm leaning towards the plains because I think we may be dealing with an incursion of Elder Dragons coming from the west, and that would fit this framing as the location where we would first encounter Laoshan Lung entering the Eastlands. To address Elder Dragons more widely, though, Lao is one of 2 confirmations that we have, the other being series' favourite returner, Kushala Daora. I have never fought Lao, so I am excited to see how this is handled, especially given its status as a mountain dragon, and I'm hoping they do a lot better than they did with Zora Magdaros in World. The fact it was a siege fight in Old Gen makes me suspect we are not going to get one of the Morans anymore, though. Kushala I am less excited for, but I will happily suspend judgment if the fight is good, and the impact on the ecology and the narrative is well executed. A lot of my issues with Kushala in World, and indeed with Elder Dragons in World more generally, because I felt that the game handled its Elder Dragons quite poorly, without giving them much space to breathe or even a real sense of gravitas. Something akin to what we got with Gogmazios in Wilds, for example. They just felt like powerful, normal monsters to me in that game, and I really hope that changes here. Also, Kushala's fight in World was really bad. With Kushala's confirmation, however, and, more critically, its inclusion in the Windward Plains, I believe this also leads us to soft confirm 2 more Elder Dragon inclusions, Teostra and Chameleos. These 3 form the OG weather-related Elder trio from 2nd Gen, and while Chameleos skipped World, it did turn up in Rise. In fact, I recently watched a really excellent video from the YouTuber Pickle, talking about the Rise monsters he expected to see in Wilds based specifically on model detail. That is, monsters that seemed to him to have been downscaled from higher resolution models rather than crafted for Rise specifically. Several of his predictions came true, but two that didn't, or at least haven't so far, were Chameleos and Kezu. Given Kushala in the plains, I'm going to say I think it's very likely we're going to see Teostra in the basin and Chameleos in the forest. And given Gemma's new plushie, I also think Kezu may be soft confirmed here. And if Kezu is back, Shrouded Nursilla also feels like a shoo-in. On that note, if 3 out of 4 core biomes are getting essentially bespoke elders, the Ice Shard Cliffs is also going to get one. This could just be Shigaru Magala, but if we're going to be matching inclemencies, as Kushala semi-suggests we might, although I understand that Kushala's windstorms are different from lightning storms, they are similar enough that I'm willing to give some overlap here. I'm going to stick to my predictions that the Aisha Cliffs is either going to get Velkhana or Orochi Kirin, with Shigaru being situated on the more Heaven's Mounty portions of the Eyrie. And I'm actually going to lean towards the latter. Some credible pre-Monster Hunter World data mines suggested that Orochi Kirin was originally planned and then later scrapped for World or Iceborne. If the devs want to revisit it, it fits very well on the cliffs. It has potent ice abilities, it manipulates the surrounding air in a way that could readily emulate aspects of the frost winds but also be noticeably different. And more importantly, its small size means that it can very easily traverse the map and be fought in a variety of locations there. So yeah, new Elder Dragon predictions for base Ascendance, Teostra, Chameleos, and Orochi Kirin for base biome Elders. Another early-gen Elder without a modern return I would not be surprised to see here, although maybe in a title update rather than the base expansion, is Yamatsukami. Yama is traditionally fought in the tower in old-gen games. The Skybound Eyrie provides an excellent opportunity to create a Yama arena that fits naturally in the world. Also, I am reiterating a prediction I made in my earlier video. Nergigante is likely going to be an early title update monster. The setup for the expansion makes it seem like the big Elder influx is going to be a relatively recent event, something that either initiates or exacerbates the core conflict in Ascendance. As an eater of elders, and more importantly a very popular monster, I can see Nergigante dropping in either Title Update 1 or Title Update 2 as a follow-up challenge from the base expansion, as it arrives in the Eastlands to pursue the elders from the Master Rank campaign. I also still expect we're going to see Dolamador, also in a title update, likely title update 4 to parallel Gogmazios. So, to kind of wrap up some initial predictions, Teostra, Chameleos, and Orochi Kirin for biome-specific elders, Yamatsukami as a potential fight in the Eyrie, either in base or title update, Shigaru Magala also as a fight in the Eyrie, likely in the base expansion, Nergigante for title updates, Kurupeko and Kezu soft confirmed normal returners, and Shrouded Nursilla as a returning subspecies. Also likely Deviljho. I am also still expecting returning subspecies like Copper Blangonga to make it in, but yeah, that is what it is. I'm also expecting, or indeed predicting, a flagship that is either a Apex Bird Wyvern or a bird-like Elder Dragon, with the latter likely either Samalt or the inspiration behind it. I could also see it being a demi-elder specifically that matures into a full elder at the expansion's climax. I feel this would actually tie in to Wyveria's experimentation, given that demi-elders can actually be captured. If the original core source for Zoshia was actually a demi-elder rather than a full elder dragon, this would explain how Wyveria got the information and the kind of monster essence to initiate their Elder Dragon cloning procedure. Bonus points though if this new bird-like Elder Dragon either literally splits from Zoshia somehow, but I expect it to be more of a kind of ancestral or symbolic connection rather than a direct one. To add to these, I think given the presence of Guardians in the Eyrie, we are almost certainly going to get more Guardians. I'm going to reiterate my earlier prediction that we're going to see New World returners with elemental gaps, with one modifier: Guardian Legiana and Guardian Coral Puke Puke. a bird-like flying wyvern and a bird wyvern, both missing elements, and both would fit fantastically in the Eyrie. Imagine Coral Puke Puke soaking up those pores that we see the new bird wyvern flying over and then just jetting them out in your face. That said, these are all my initial thoughts. I admit I'm really excited and I can't wait to find out more as the next few months roll by and we get closer to launch. I was a bit sad we didn't find out the name of the new monster from the Dev Talk video, but give it time. I hope you're all doing well and are equally hyped for moi, as I'm going to call it, like a big kiss from Capcom to the Monster Hunter fanbase. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment if you enjoy my content. I will be doing more videos in the coming weeks talking about Wilds and some of my other favourite games, like Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy VII now that Revelation has finally been announced. I'm looking forward to hearing from you all in the comment section. Anyway, this has been Laraika Laray, signing off.
Did I go and burst the bubble? Promise more than I can give. I tried to touch its cosmic sheen, but today all I smell is chlorine. Yesterday I was deep sea diving, but today I found a floor. Run my fingers over its surface, but I couldn't find a door.